The U.S. sticking point is Hollywood North versus Canadian culture. Let's talk about this. Ever notice, every time Canada tries to talk trade with the U.S., Washington immediately reaches for some pressure point. Not autos, not dairy, not softwood lumber, no. The sticking point they love to poke at is culture, specifically Canadian content rules. And this week, with CUSMA talks wobbling and tariffs flying around like mosquitoes in July, the sticking point is back on the table. Why culture is even a trade deal? See, the U.S. doesn't just export cars or grains. They export culture, movies, TV, music, streaming platforms, the whole Hollywood machine. And Canada? Canada is one of the only countries that said, yeah, that's cool, but we're not letting our entire cultural identity get swallowed up by the world's biggest entertainment factory. That's why we have CanCon rules, CTR quotas, Canadian music requirements, funding for domestic film and TV. These aren't vanity projects, they're survival tools, because without them, turn on the radio, it's 100% American. Turn on the TV, it's 100% American. Streaming, forget it. The algorithm would bury Canadian creators so deep, you'd never need a mine permit. You'd actually need a mine permit to find them. The U.S. argument, why it's predictable. The U.S. position is always the same. Canadian content rules are unfair, barriers to American entertainment companies. Translation, your cultural sovereignty is an inconvenience for our business model. They frame it as a trade issue, but it's not a trade issue, it's a power issue, because if they can get Canada to drop cultural protections, they don't just win the market, they win the narrative space. They win the airwaves, they win the algorithm, they win the identity game. And that's why this is always a sticking point. See, Canada will never be a 51st state because Canada is Canadian. The irony is Hollywood North exists because of Canada. Here's the part the U.S. never ever mentions. Half of their favorite shows are made in Canada. Supernatural, shot in BC. The Boys, shot in Toronto. Once Upon a Time, shot in Vancouver. Deadpool, shot in Vancouver. X-Men, shot in Vancouver. The Arrow, shot in Vancouver. And the list is so long it needs its own postal code. My wife's sister, husband, literally works on the set. The crews that build and carpent the cities, the lighting tech, the makeup artists, the drivers, the caterers, thousands of Canadians keep American productions running. Hollywood North isn't a nickname, it's an industry. And it exists because Canada protects its culture space long enough to build one. Why this is a sticking point right now with CUSMA? Renewal, high hanging by a thread. The U.S. tries to bundle everything together. Tariffs, annual reviews, auto rules, dairy, and now culture. They want concessions, they want leverage, they want Canada to blink. But here's the twist. Canada cannot give this one up. Not politically, not economically, not culturally, not mathematically. If Canada drops culture protection, the entire domestic industry collapses in under 5 years. Streaming platforms would drown out Canadian creators overnight. Hollywood North would become Hollywood Northish. Then Hollywood North adjacent, and then Hollywood North, remember when? That was a thing, and and the U.S. knows this. That's why they push it. This is the part nobody on cable news wants to say out loud. Cultural sovereignty, not a flag, not a border, not a speech, but culture. If you control the stories the people hear, you control the identity they form. If you control the identity, you control the politics. If you control the politics, you control the country. That's why Canada fights so hard on this file. That's why the U.S. keeps poking it. And that's why this sticking point is bigger than Hollywood. It's about who gets to shape the North American narrative. So when you hear U.S. negotiators complaining about unfair cultural rules, remember, they're not talking about fairness. They're not talking about influence. They're not talking about fairness. They are talking about influence. They're talking about reach. They're talking about control. And Canada is one of the last countries on earth still willing to say, no, our culture is not for sale. That's the real sticking point. And that's why this fight matters. Like, follow, and subscribe. We'll be back. Have a good morning.